So General Howard had just gotten set up in his position in the Freedmen's Bureau a couple months before, and now all of a sudden he is forced, because of Andrew Johnson's new executive orders, forced to go back to all of these people who had just started settling land, were getting married, were finding their families, were starting schools, and tell them, oh yeah, by the way, sorry, no go, no good. This land that we gave you, we're taking it back. No reparations for you, no support for you from the federal government. You're just cut loose on your own. Good luck. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Why don't you go back to your plantation owner and ask him for a job? See how that works out. And of course, it didn't work out well. People were horribly taken advantage of. Now, there are a few people still in Congress who were these extreme radicals, right? The guys we talked about before, Thaddeus Stevens, they really wanted to make sure that in the new union that they were forming, that Black people were given citizenship rights. So they're still pushing, Congress is still pushing to pass a Civil Rights Act. So in 1866, March 1866, Congress passes the first Civil Rights Act in the United States. 13th Amendment was abolishing slavery. Now becomes this Civil Rights Act. It's not a constitutional amendment yet, but they're working on it. They are trying to get to the 14th Amendment, to full citizenship, birthright citizenship for anyone and everyone who was born in America, regardless of race. But guess what? Our little fucking bitch-ass friend vetoes it. Andrew Johnson vetoes the Civil Rights Act, and he goes, nah, I don't think Black people should be citizens of this nation. But Congress actually pulled it together and they overrode his veto, because with a 2/3 majority vote in Congress, you can override a presidential veto. So Congress passes the bill. Andrew Johnson, the president, says no. And then Congress says, actually, yes, we're doing this. So they push it through and they enact the first Civil Rights Act in the United States. That means that if you beat a Black man, he can sue you for assault. Instead of just being property, now all of a sudden people of color have rights. And guess who that pisses off? You gotcha. Southern states and the good old boys, the whiteys, the racists, are furious at this. And so what happens? In the summer of 1866, this gives rise to the KKK, increased hate crimes across the South, and the implementation of Black codes. So the Southern states say, you know what? We don't actually want to listen to your federal guidelines, to your federal Civil Rights Act. We're going to make up our own laws, our own rules. And so they start doing what becomes the Jim Crow laws. They start passing all these laws about what Black people can do, where they can go. They can impose all kinds of crazy hoops for people to jump through just in order to live normal lives. So for a little while there, right after the Civil War, there was this brief moment of Black excellence. People were finding each other, starting families, starting homes, starting schools, and things were going okay for a minute until Andrew Johnson came in and squashed everything. This is a direct quote. He said, "This is a country for white men, and by God, as long as I am president, it shall be a government for white men." And he meant it. W.E.B. Du Bois, who we're talking about in Dr. Barlow's class, said, from 1865 through 1867, freed people stood a brief moment in the sun. So if Abraham Lincoln had not been assassinated and he had been able to follow through with his vision of Reconstruction for the South, Black people would have been granted their 40 acres and a mule, their immediate reparations right after the Civil War, and they would have been given a foothold in society. Imagine how different our country could have been. Now, yes, would there always have been racist white dudes in the South pushing back against this progress? Of course. But who knows how different things might have been.